In the last 3 video modules, we looked at how to develop the infrastructure for an emergency response plan. Now we will look at the mock event itself, which gives everyone involved a chance to test the ER plan and rehearse what he or she is to do. The planning committee members, each with a copy of the ER plan, have gathered once again to plan for the actual mock event and set its date. They decide that the mock event will be a fire. They determined that there will be victims who will need to be treated for smoke inhalation and minor injuries. Elaine will be in charge of organizing the makeup session for this. They picked 2 other employees who are not part of the response team to play the role of the press and to videotape events during the mock incident. After this meeting and prior to the actual event, the ER team with their binders tour the site and rehearse response procedures. Stu orders in a smoke generator and other necessary props. George briefs all warehouse employees about the upcoming event. They must know their responsibilities, even if it is only to evacuate the building and gather at a central location for a head count. Mike, as communications officer, informs key members of the community of the impending event. Prior to the event, the employees playing the victims are made up. With these preparations completed, the ER team is ready to stage the event. Today starts off just like any other day at the warehouse. People come into work and go about their jobs as usual. Then, at 1100 hours as planned, it all begins. An employee notices smoke coming from under a pallet of freshly delivered products. He determines the level of fire, then immediately contacts the warehouse supervisor. Together with the warehouse emergency manager, they decide to initiate full emergency response procedures. Each person in the warehouse knows what he or she has to do. For example, shut off the electricity, activate the fire alarm, turn off computer systems, grab the first aid kit, leave the building at the nearest safe exit, close the fire door to prevent the fire from spreading, grab the safety mats to place over drains outside, shut off the gas. While all this is going on, the warehouse emergency manager phones the fire department. He then directs one of the staff to shut off the water drains. As the smoke increases, employees quickly leave the building. Mike, the supervisor, is the last to leave, after everyone else is safely out. He then goes over to count the number of injured people. Elaine is looking after them now just outside the building. Mike reports to George on who is injured so that George can complete his head count. George then directs Mike to set up an emergency operations center. On his way to the incident, the fire department rep reviews the ER plan, focusing on the site diagram. The warehouse emergency manager also directs Mike, in the role of communications officer, to set up a communications area at the emergency operations center. From here, the communications officer notifies the Ministry of the Environment and other necessary contacts. Then he'll join the warehouse emergency manager at the front entrance to meet the fire department. When the fire department arrives, the warehouse emergency manager and technical support officer are waiting at the entrance to meet and brief the fire department rep. At this point, the warehouse emergency manager passes responsibility over to the fire department rep, who will now take charge of the site and become the incident commander. One of the first priorities of the fire department is to provide oxygen and first aid to the injured, who are assembled at the Emergency Operations Center that Elaine has helped set up at George's direction. As the firefighters exit the truck, the incident commander directs them to take a position around the perimeter of the building. But because the fire is of a chemical nature, a let burn policy will be followed. Measures are taken to contain the fire within the building, but water will not be used to extinguish the fire. The police arrive at the site. The incident commander and site security officer confer with the police officer. It is decided that Stu, the site security officer, should cordon off the main entrance. In the meantime, the incident commander and police officer discuss the safety and environmental risks to surrounding areas. What is the status of the fire? What is the present wind direction? Should any neighborhood houses or industrial sites be evacuated? Do any roads need to be closed? Does the railway need to be notified? Mike, as technical support officer, joins the discussion at this point to provide technical information about the products in the warehouse. While this is going on, the Ministry of the Environment representative arrives and joins them. The incident commander and technical support officer brief him on the nature of the chemical materials in the warehouse. They assess the safety and environmental risks. While this discussion is going on, Stu, the site security officer, finishes cordoning off the entrance and exit. Just as he completes this task, a news reporter arrives. Stu intercepts her at a safe distance from the site. Although she attempts to get closer to the action, he detains her. She asks him questions, but he tells her she must speak directly to the communications officer. The communications officer comes over and briefs her on the situation. While this is taking place, the video operator records the events for later review. All the steps in the emergency response plan have now been completed. The actions you have just seen are typical of what takes place in a well-organized response. Events will vary, of course, depending on the circumstances of the incident. If there had been more serious injuries, an ambulance would have been called. If the incident had been on a larger scale, more firefighting support would have been involved, more interventions taken, and firefighters may have been required to enter the building to rescue victims. But the essential procedures would have remained the same. Immediate evacuation. Notification of the fire department. Setting up an emergency operations center to look after the injured. Establishing a communications area to contact secondary responders such as police. Cordoning off the area to keep out the public. And directing assigned personnel to communicate with the fire department, police, and other responders. The event now ends. The fire crew can relax and take off their gear. The Emergency Operations Center can be dismantled. The fire equipment is put away. Outside responders are thanked for their participation in the event. George and the fire department rep agree. All in all, it was a job well done.